hassle in my life. Anyway, so about yeah, so actually now I'm out on my Beyond the Barricades YouTube channel at the minute, streaming live. I'm pretty much just checking how the live thing works because I see other people doing lives and talking to people in real time, and I think there's conversations to be had, so I want to get it out there. Anyway, what to do when you have the whole spam messages or the messages coming into your social media where you'll see new message requests, and I like stuff like this, which is really nice, and I'll do it just to bring everyone up to date. Messages such as this. I got this one from someone called Edward Wood. This Edward Wood character fake account has been around a few times because I've blocked him a few times in the past, on different accounts, and then they popped up again. Nice to know the fake account's still going strong. Anyway, I've got this. I was on here going through profiles, and so luckily I came across your marvellous and charming picture of you, which really drew my attention to get in touch with you, and also, I really love your profile. Nice to meet you. Can we be friends? And then, the other one from a soldier, from a sock puppet account called Robert Howe, who apparently is in the US Army at Fort Lee. Possibly not. I don't think somebody who's in the US Army at Fort Lee is going to be having time to, sit there and check out my Facebook and send me nice messages. Anyway, from that person I go, hello beautiful, nice to meet you. And so like I've got something for you to use when you get these messages, because they can tie you down trying to engage people in conversation and then realizing they're not real people, or thinking that they're not real people and just ignoring them, and there's been nothing from the interaction at all. And I love the whole feedback loop thing. Feedback loops are a good thing. So what I do is this. I go, hey sexy, and then I don't even wait. I don't even wait for a response. I'll follow it up with, depending on what country they're from. Say if they're in Australia, or if they're in America, or if they're in the UK, or if they're in a place that uses euros or whatever. Use the currency which is right for where they are. So I responded with, hey sexy, can you spare $10? And right at the beginning there, you're not even talking to them yet. They've just reached out to you, told you that you're beautiful. And bear in mind, like I said before I played the last song on my show, I've had Facebook accounts for my cat in the past, and my cat used to get them. Do you know what I mean? That's crazy. Man, the cat was beautiful, to be fair. No longer with us. But, and then if they come back and say, yes, blah, 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 then what you do is you send them a link to a GoFundMe or to a charity that you like, and ask them to donate it to that charity. And then obviously the conversation will take a downward turn because that person won't want to donate it or anything. Or they won't want to, or even if they do, they may be using a pseudonym, which is pseudonym. It means not the name, which is actually your name. Like a lot of gender critical people use on Facebook and on TikTok and on Twitter. Yeah. Anyway, so if they say they're willing to do, then ask them to show you proof. And then once they show you proof, you never know. You might actually be dealing with a real person. And then if you are dealing with a real person, it's win-win, isn't it? What's not to like? Do you know what I mean? Anyway, there you go. This is my first Beyond the Barricades of 22. 2022. Yeah, we're 22 coming to you. And I want to cover a couple of things, to be fair, before we move on with the show. And, it's been a tough year last year with a lot of things going on about... It's been a tough time for people going through transition, for people who are identifying as anything other than the gender than the sex that they were assigned at birth, if you will. Because sex is assigned, gender is assumed. And there seems to be a lot of gender critical views which seem to be validated. But when you're looking at the gender critical area of the world, it seems to be a really wide remit. There seems to be stopping points along the way. So some people are okay and they'll have the discussion. Some people are okay with people like me. So like if you've medically transitioned, you're okay. But if you haven't medically transitioned, then you're some kind of predator. So that means that up until the time I got my surgery, I was a predator. But the thing is, I've always been trans. I've always been me. And that's part of the point. But I think the media companies have got something to do here, you know. When we're looking at taking responsibility, like I've seen in the past few weeks on places, you know, like GB News and stuff, and I know they might not seem credible sources, but the same as Fox News in America, there's a lot of people listen to these things, and that's where they get the information. If you don't believe that's the thing, just you know, get an account on Getter, Gettr. If you want to see how scary the world really is when people aren't there to moderate it, it is a scary place. I'm telling you now. But these media companies, they have people like Kelly J. Keane on, you know, parading them out. I've seen interviews on Talksport with James Max, and I've seen interviews with, you know, where they've brought in trans people. You know, and I say trans people, like there's Debbie Hayton, but Debbie Hayton says that Debbie Hayton is a man, and Debbie Hayton has he pronouns. But as far as I was aware, Debbie Hayton was a trans woman, and before all of this, all of the trans critical stuff come along, you know, Debbie Hayton was a trans. I don't even know. I've tried to get Debbie Hayton on the radio show before, but they just fell down. You know, I couldn't do it on the time she wanted, and it's an open invitation anyway. And I'm calling her she because, you know, and if she tells me off for misgendering her, then I'll just have to apologise and refer to her as he. But the thing is, the media companies, they get people out on the shows, on the radio stations, to talk about being trans, and they have them lined up often against a gender critical person, such as Kelly J. Keane, you know, and they it's almost a case of it blows my mind to think that why these media companies want to choose trans people who don't really have a positive view of being trans. You know, how could a person go through transition and then close the door on anyone else going through transition? That's just not kind, is it? That's just you know, your own subjective truth doesn't doesn't rule everybody else's life. It really doesn't. I feel like as a start off, we need more understanding voices in the media. We need more rational voices in the media. People know when I do my training sessions and stuff around equality and diversity, I actually have a section on my sessions of let's ask difficult questions, you know. And like, but there's myself. I could tell you at least a dozen people who work in the same area as me who would be able to go on the likes of Talksport, Good Morning Britain, This Morning, you know, GB News, all of them platforms, if you will, and have a discussion which is actually bringing a bit of a more common sense route to moving forward out of this, because it's a mess at the minute. It truly is. As we're moving forward through this mess at the minute, it's costing people. It's costing people the mental health well-being. Obviously, there's stress there, and I say to people, when you're looking at inclusion, we always have to leave space for people to tell us we're not being included. And, you know, an argument could be made that a lot of the gender critical voices are making that statement that they're feeling not included in the process of moving forward as society is moving forward. Because you can legislate for or against trans people, but you will not eradicate their existence, because their existence has been there since way before any of us have walked this planet. You know, really have. There's still people out there using their own like religious views to discriminate against trans people. And like when we're looking at religious views, we have to look on it different ways as well. We truly do. You know, I mean, I do talks. Let's talk trans a Christian perspective. So I'm a person of faith as well as a trans person, and you know, like they're really interesting. I feel, but there's one point around that when we're looking at like the LGBTQ issue within religious areas, and it's like how many times did, if you know, if you're a follower of Christianity, will say Jesus, how many times did Jesus mention gay people? Zero, none. You know, how many times did Jesus specifically mention trans people? Zero, none. How many times did Jesus mention maybe the variance? Actually, Jesus did mention the variance. He spoke about eunuchs, and what he said was, some people are born eunuchs, some people are made eunuchs, and some people um, make themselves. Now, if you make yourself in that way, if you were biologically male, if you were identified at birth, and if your dysphoria 2,000 years ago was so much that you felt you needed to do things like that to yourself in those days, I'm imagining that's a big bag of gender dysphoria. People who are intersex, we don't even recognise people who are intersex. And this isn't appropriation, this is appreciation. There's over 120,000 intersex people in the UK who've had a surgical procedure at birth. We need to stop doing that. We need to actually have mutual birth certificates so those people can actually be. The culture needs to understand that the binary isn't all that exists. And I think when we actually get rights for people who are intersex, then we'll be getting rights for the wider society. But just going back to the religious side of it, if you will. When we're looking at this, you know, and you're looking at scriptures and stuff like that, it is Sunday morning, so it's on a Sunday morning live. So when we're looking at this, we've also got to remember that in the Bible, I think eunuchs are mentioned about, I think, 45 times in the Old Testament and at least 3 times in the New Testament. And on one of those times, it's where they're being told that, you know, there's a special place in the kingdom and they get a special name. Now, you know, when I was doing some training sessions down in Gloucester, no, not Gloucester, Surrey, down in Surrey at university well, before the pandemic, and there was a lad on the session, and he said to me, he says, I wouldn't be allowed in his church. I said, why? I said, because God wouldn't recognise me. I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, because you've changed your body. So I says, well, so if can you imagine if someone was born with a cleft palate? I actually said this to him. I said, if someone was born with a cleft palate and it got repaired, would that be okay? He says, no, it wouldn't, because you're not supposed to change anything. And granted, this person did seem to have really, really like hardline views in this area. But let's consider something now. Like in the Old Testament, eunuchs, which is the variance, if you will, which certainly isn't male or female, they were mentioned 45 times, in the New Testament 3 times, and one of them was to big them up and give them a bit of definition as well. The fact that these people were even mentioned in the Bible as such, as valid for who they are, where they are at, that tells us that they are valid. That tells us that they are seen as who they are. I have no doubt whatsoever in my mind that God loves trans people. Why wouldn't any, if we believe in a creator, why wouldn't any creator love just people, love things? Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, what's the point? You see, I get the feeling that all of these arguments, it's almost like the goldfish in the bowl arguing about the wallpaper on the wall. We're not going to change things. What we have to do is we have to learn to live in peace and move forward in a really, really happy sense. Anyway, I think that's enough for me on this subject today on the Beyond the Barricades. I do actually want to start doing some things where I'm watching along some of the gender critical videos that are out there and some of the contents out there, because I feel as if it's needed. But that's a case of what we need to do. Well, what I need to do is I need to be able to sit down and go through them and maybe pull some conversations apart and interject. You know, have an open invite for people to come on my radio show. That open invite's there. Debbie Hayton, Kelly J. Keane, you know, Graham Linehan, Helen Staniland, Artie Morty, Mr. Menno. You know, I have to touch on Mr. Menno. Mr. Menno seems to be making, trans identities into a joke, calling people woo woo and all this type of stuff. But I'll tell you what is quite noticeable about all of the gender critical elite, if you will, that are speaking out there, Excelsior also, all of them it seems to be a job as well as everything else. And like they're all doing it from the Patreons and all of that sort of thing, like monetizing the hatred. And like you can imagine, just mathematics passion fires people up, doesn't it? And on some subjects like trans issues, where people aren't supportive of trans people or non-binary people, but maybe because of where someone is in their work, or the rest of the family won't approve, or they might lose friends if they come out with it. It's sort of like it's a way to. I feel as if it's almost a way to, you don't have to do this, but like you can subscribe to us, you can become a Patreon, you can do all of that type of stuff to pay for the people who've got the voices. So I almost feel as if like Gender Critic is becoming an industry. It's becoming an industry like in the same way that people do the arts and crafts on Etsy. It's like obviously the arts and crafts on Etsy is a bit more palatable, but just be careful. Just be careful. And those detransitioners who go on these platforms to sit there, don't let your detransition be weaponized against trans people. Because we are already quite marginalised anyway, aren't we? I'm not going to go into the stats and stuff, because it's all the old tropes in it. But I just get the feeling that we have to move forward out of this place, and I feel there's a radical middle road. So if you're linked with any media who's putting stuff out on this, and if you'd like, I'd be more than happy to come on, and like I'm not going to charge a fee or anything like that, because for me, just getting word out there and maybe helping the world be safer for one person's my aim. So so feel free to give me a shout if needed. But also, if you're in different areas of the country and you want engagement, then you can give me a shout, because I've got a good lay of the land around the people that are out there, and I can signpost you and introduce you to people in your area that can come on your media channels to talk about these things. When I got my surgery last year, I did some Trans Reflections podcasts and put them out there, which was pretty much a note to myself, looking back over time at after my transition. And what I found them really useful. This year, I've decided to do something similar. I'm going to be carrying on the Trans Reflections, but this year I'm going to be talking with trans and non-binary people around the world, and we're going to be getting that media out there, because I feel as if we need to have some real life people talking about real life things. Anyway, that's me. So well, let's get back to a song, shall we? I told you about this thing I've got for Pete Wiley, didn't I? Well, he's come back. Enjoy. Yeah, so normally I do these Beyond the Barricades I do them from, I video them, and then I have to go home and edit them and put them up and all that type of stuff. And I thought to myself, well, it's going to be just as easy if I can just, if I can do a Facebook, a YouTube live, then what I can do is I can it saves me the editing, saves me the uploading, and then they're just there, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Sorted. Job's a good one. Right, so seriously though, Like, I'm more than happy. I'm more than happy. Like, GB News, I don't mind. I'll jump on my Zoom and have a chat. James Max, I feel as if James Max has got some important conversations to put out there. I'd love to have a chat with James Max. I really would on TalkSport. Why do we keep putting people on media who either aren't knowledgeable or have a negative opinion about trans, and we're setting them in the role of being the adversary of a gender critical person? It's not rocket science, is it? It really isn't. Anyway, take good care of yourselves. Be good. If you can't be good to yourselves, be good to each other. Okay? Right. See if I can end this. I'm not even sure how to end the video, you know. So what I might do is if I... where are we? I absolutely love Pete Wiley, you know. I do. I'd love to get Pete Wiley on my radio show. And Tom Bailey from Thompson Twins. Anyway, I digress. Right, take care, everybody. Bye now.